Greetings and hello, my name is James Robert Lay, and I'd like to welcome you to the third and final episode in the New Starts Now Small Business Series brought to you by Nimbus. In the first two episodes, I guided the conversation around building for growth and marketing for growth. And today I'm going to sit down and visit one-on-one with 5 of the top thinkers and leaders in the industry to listen and learn from them so we can all optimize for growth as we confidently move forward ahead towards a future together. In fact, this idea of financial brand growth, more specifically for today's conversation, credit union growth, is a subject that I've been studying for almost 20 years, as it was my initial work with credit unions that led me to this path here today. When I think back on everything that I've observed over the past 20 years, credit union growth at its core is a transformational journey from good to great. And all transformations that lead to future growth start with one thing: telling the truth about where you've been, where you're at, and where you can grow next. But growth doesn't happen alone. It requires collaboration, working together with like minds who are also on a similar journey of growth. Growth also requires listening, because it is often through the simple act of listening we can gain the greatest insights from others that light a path towards the future, a future we've never seen before. This is why I'm excited to first welcome Jeffrey Kendall, Chairman and CEO of Nimbus, because I know collaboration through listening are 2 big things that you've been focused on throughout working with Nimbus. When you go back in your mind and you think about the conversations that you've been having around collaboration, historically, what have been some of the challenges when it comes to credit unions, community financial brands, and small businesses? Where have been some of the friction and the frustration here?
Well, I think for credit unions, one of the things that I discovered pretty early on when working with them is that for some reason over the past 15, 20 years, I think that the tech and vendor community have convinced credit unions that the smart people are outside of the credit union. And when I started in this industry and talking to the people that were in the boardrooms and behind the teller counters at credit unions, that's where a lot of the innovative ideas were coming from. They know the business, they understand the problems, they see and talk to members all the time. And one of the things that I pointed out very early on was like, these are the people we need to be listening to. Innovation is actually locked up within the credit union, and that's part of our belief is that our job is to listen and help unlock that innovation. We can help execute on it, we can build the right technology solutions, we can get to the right offers, that's what we're great at. But really, we need to understand the business context, and nobody understands the credit union better than the credit union themselves. So we're very, very strong advocates of making sure that we partner with them, we listen to them, and that's where most of our good ideas come from.
I want to dive deeper into that, though, this idea of listening. Why? Because a lot of people can say, oh, we listen, but why is this such a key part of the culture at Nimbus?
I think for us, we're interested in solving hard problems. I always tell my team, I said the market rewards people who solve hard problems, not easy problems. And again, I think when we listen, it helps us get the right context to understand, get deeper into the problem so that we really have more than just a surface level understanding of it. A traditional tech player, one of the biggest challenges, and I've been in these companies before, so this is kind of a reaction to that, which is if you just start with the technology and you're not focused on the problem, it's too easy to do the proverbial, when you sell hammers, everything looks like a nail. And I don't ever want our company to be in that position. We really want to be solving the actual challenges, not the other way around.
How are you doing that? How are you putting people at the center of your thinking? How are you putting people at the center of your doing?
So I think 2 things. Number one is we go beyond just building software and code, because we know that to actually get the results that you need from software, a lot of times you need consulting help. Sometimes you just need extra hands and bodies to be able to get things done. And credit unions and community banks in particular, they don't have a big bench staff. They're running on, they're running very efficient operations to begin with. So there's not a lot of people sitting around with things to do, so they'll need those different helps and resources to be able to do those things. And that's really one thing that we start with is making sure that, again, if we're in the trenches with them, solving problems, running call centers with them, doing business process outsourcing, those are opportunities for us to learn more about their business. And the second thing is just when we even begin to develop a new product or a concept, like with our QSO, the Nimbus QSO, that is a participation of having lots of credit unions come to the table to really understand what the problem is and so that we can help fix it. but it's about listening, right? When you bring everybody together, the first thing that our job is to stop talking and start listening.
Historically, this has been a very competitive industry, and as we look ahead towards the future, I see a future of collaboration. A rising tide, it raises all ships, and so what are the opportunities in your mind to help others break free from what has historically been maybe a competitive mindset to one that is collaborative in nature, one that there's enough opportunity to go around for all of us to optimize for growth together?
Yeah, I think what I'm starting to see in the industry is that it's, take credit unions, for example. It's not necessarily credit unions competing with each other, but credit unions are starting to get pressures from fintechs. Credit unions are starting to get pressures the same as banks from the mega money center banks and things like that. So my perception is that they're less concerned about the competitiveness between each other, and they're more focused on, hey, the real big threat to our business and to our industry is coming external. And so there's a natural, credit unions have always been sort of naturally collaborative, and so they tend to come together to help each other fix those problems.
When you look ahead at the future of growth, credit unions optimizing for growth, particularly with relationships with small to mid-sized businesses, what are those big opportunities that you see from a collaboration there between small to mid-sized businesses, credit unions, community financial brands, that they can either create, they can capture, they can capitalize on going forward?
Well, I think number one, the thesis of a credit union is members helping members, right? It was all about taking resources, combining them, and then helping the individuals out in that community, but having that. So by the very nature of what a credit union is, it's sort of banding together to help people grow. And I think right now with small business, that's also very common in the small business industry, right? You see a lot of, people tend to want to do business with other small businesses when they're there together because they want to help each other out. They understand each other's struggles and do that. So I think that's one opportunity, which is to just have the very nature of how they work together be aligned in a similar way. The other thing that I think is coming as a new opportunity is, we have this trend going on right now. It's very time relevant, but the Great Resignation.
Yes.
You have a lot of people who are leaving their traditional jobs. You have a lot of people who are saying, wow, maybe my work life needs to be different. Maybe it needs to be more flexible. Maybe it's not about me working for one company, but how do I fractionalize my talent and my energy to work with several companies? Or how do I get into the gig economy? Right. And I think that thinking and that trend of people sort of creating new small businesses and getting into that creates an opportunity for credit unions to say, I'm actually going to help my member as a customer transition their career and transition into becoming a small business or becoming an independent freelancer or something like that. And I think there's a very natural tie-in right now for that trend that's coming. If credit unions jump on what is their birthright and heritage, which is to really understand and help their members, now you have the opportunity to help them become small businesses.
For you personally, looking ahead towards the future, optimizing for growth, collaboration, listening, what are you most hopeful about when it comes to the small business, credit union, community financial brand relationship? What's getting you excited?
What I think, as part of the provider community, the software community, in that sort of angle, what I'm really excited about is the level of collaboration that the credit unions are going to force tech providers to do. The tech providers are going to actually have to work together. The tech providers are going to be the ones that have to partner together and take on some of the risk that has traditionally been placed on the credit union. Because none of these big grand ideas about helping small businesses can come from any one single provider or tech platform or vendor. It's really an orchestrated strategy. But to do that, you have to have your suppliers that are actually willing and wanting to truly partner versus trying to just be participants in the same play. And that's where I think a real opportunity is. And so I tell credit unions all the time, look for the partners who want to partner, because that'll tell you something about their mindset, that they're not afraid of participating in a broader conversation. And that's what it takes for a credit union to be successful.
I appreciate your thinking. I appreciate your perspective, Jeffrey. And I'm really hopeful about the future of credit union growth because it is through collaboration. It is through listening with an empathetic ear that we can all learn and grow together to create an even bigger and better and brighter future for small to mid-sized businesses. So now let's dive even deeper to continue to explore how credit unions, and really all financial brands for that matter, can optimize for growth through collaboration, through listening, especially through the lens of empowering and elevating small to mid-sized businesses. I'd like to now welcome Casey Wilcox, Nimbus consultant and longtime financial services executive, to build on Jeffrey's thinking as Jeffrey discussed the why and the how around how Nimbus has made listening a key part of the culture, which are in fact great lessons for others to deploy to optimize for growth at their credit union or community financial brand. Casey, when you think about these lessons that you've learned, lessons learned through listening, lessons learned through collaboration, what are some of the biggest challenges, the biggest roadblocks that you're hearing when it comes to the relationship between credit unions and small businesses?
The biggest inhibitor is for the ability for the credit union to offer and meet all of the needs beyond, you would say, the traditional normative banking needs that you would go to a bank for, a checking account, a simplified loan for the business. So it's really taking it beyond that and going into what you find at traditional financial institutions or banks, where they have transaction banking services and other things that they can manage their payroll, they can make payments, they can do remote deposit, do different types of things that you don't traditionally see offered at credit unions, where they tend to be more focused on the consumer.
If you leap into the mind of the small business owner, maybe it's a mid-sized business, where might there be some friction and frustration when it comes to the relationship back to the credit union of how credit unions might even be thinking about talking to, addressing these small business owners?
Well, the thing where I feel that there's so much value for credit unions in this space is credit unions are community focused. They're focused on the community that they're in, the communities that they're in. And so it gets beyond looking at the small business owner or the business owner as being an entity to bring them money to make profits. Credit unions are in business to turn around and drive revenue and provide value back to their communities and to their members. So I really think that the biggest opportunity for credit unions right now in looking at the SMB space is to be able to know that they are focused on the business. They are focused on the business owner. They're focused on what the business owner is doing in the community that they're in, growing jobs, having a successful business, those types of things.
Sticking with those opportunities aligned around community, what can credit unions do to maybe tap in deeper, connect at a deeper level to communicate this potential for future growth, as I know credit unions are looking to do just that, optimize for growth going forward?
Well, it's interesting because I think optimization and driving efficiency, that's one of the great things that I see with Nimbus, is a technology that can drive efficiency within an organization, now within a financial institution. So looking at how you then create additional value adds. Small business owners and credit unions, can come together and focus on providing financial education, financial coaching, financial counseling. So a big thing that we've uncovered and discussed is, a lot of small business owners, they don't have a lot of time in the day. They're running a business. Sometimes they don't understand the ins and outs of accounting and financial packages that they need to have within their organization. So it's really a big, we're really hearing a lot from them about, it gets beyond just being able to let me move money and make payments and deposit stuff and have your credit card. It gets into, how can you help me be a better business owner? And I think the way that credit unions look at providing financial wellness, providing financial inclusivity, is really another value add in how the credit union industry can take and add value in the SMB space with business owners, and taking them beyond just doing the mundane things that keep their business going every day, but teaching them how they can make their businesses more efficient and grow.
I want to dive deeper into some of these opportunities here when it comes to building relationships from the credit union perspective, alongside working with small to mid-sized businesses in the community. Where can credit unions really tap in and double down their efforts?
So the thing that I enjoy about the credit union industry is their focus on the people, the focus on the members and their community. A lot of credit unions fall into, have low income designations, meaning the majority of their members are in lower middle income families or in lower middle income communities. So when they get that designation, one of the things that we're hearing in talking to credit union CEOs, boards, C-suite executives is, imagine being in an underserved community that's African American and being able to provide legal counseling for having to create great things, where African American lawyers would say, yes, I would love to volunteer and donate my time to help an underserved community, an underserved African American community that your credit union serves, and help drive growth for business owners and drive jobs through those business owners for that community.
I really like that example because it really is this idea of inclusivity. It is collaboration at its finest degree at the core. You can bring in legal services, you could bring in marketing services, you could bring in operations experience. And really at that point, the credit union becomes almost a commerce conduit of sorts that is empowering these small business owners to grow beyond just being small. Is that sometimes a friction point? Do you hear, like, don't call me a small business owner, I'm just a business owner? What's your take on that?
We are hearing that a lot. It's, why are you classifying me? Why are you ranking me? Why are you trying to fit me into a bucket? I am a business owner. It doesn't matter if I have X amount of revenues or X amount of employees, I'm a business owner. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to do the same thing with my business, which is grow it, have it be successful, have it provide value and sustainability for myself and for my employees. And that doesn't mean if you have 5 employees or if you have 500 or 5,000. I'm a business owner. Just treat me like I'm a business owner.
So we've talked a little bit about where credit unions have been, where they're at. Looking ahead towards the future, looking around optimizing for growth, what is one very practical next best step based upon what you're hearing, based upon what you're listening to? What's the next best step for credit unions to take to level up and improve the relationships with the businesses that they have in the communities?
So sustainability and value for our economy is really driven out of, again, I'm going to go back and categorize these smaller businesses. Not these, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. Sure, they employ lots of employees and lots of people, but when you look into the communities across the United States, it's all about what's happening on Main Street. And I think credit unions having such a community-based focus and a focus on providing value back into that community. And as I look at how you focus on underserved communities, and how that in and of itself can drive value and purpose, whether that be, again, in Native American communities, Latin American communities, LGBTQ communities, African American communities, the list goes on. Women-owned businesses, trying to get and provide that value. So I think where credit unions can create a different approach to how they bank small, middle market-sized enterprises is really by focusing on more than just providing services and products and actually adding true value. We talked about financial coaching, we talked about legal services, and all of those other things that you don't normally see offered at traditional legacy financial institutions.
So I want to stay on this topic of financial coaching because it's something that you've referenced a couple of times now. Let's dive deeper there. What does that look like for you when it comes to empowering small to mid-sized businesses within a community?
It goes back to, as I feel like it's bringing together more than just offering a product or a service. It's really helping them learn about the things with the help of other people that the credit union can bring forward from the community on legal services, accounting services, marketing services, things that people are looking to for segments that they grew up in of the community that they're wanting to give back to help others be a success. And what I think is when you look at how credit unions are really focused on that Main Street aspect of our economy is really where you can make the difference, because it's helping them understand that it's okay that you're going to make mistakes and it's okay to say, I don't know. And guess what? We're here to do more than just help you with your checking account and your loan. We're here to help you with a legal person, a marketing person, to help you know where you can drive things. We're here to help benchmark you and help you say, you know what? Your business is down 15%, and the other businesses that are exactly the same as yours in the community that we have banking with us and that we know from looking at other data are 15% higher than you. So let's help you understand what you're doing differently, that we need to help you capture that 15%.
Where does niche play into all of this when it comes to collaboration with credit unions and small to mid-sized businesses? What might there be some opportunities that we could talk about there?
The niche opportunity in my mind is becoming listeners instead of tellers. So we've been hearing this a lot from credit union executives and boards, and that is, how do we get better at listening to what our members are asking for us to do? So we create products that make sense. We add services that are adding value. We bring in some of these ancillary things that we traditionally don't see in financial services, and we add that value. And so by doing that, of course, what are you doing? You're creating a stickier, more cohesive relationship with that person. And imagine in smaller communities, urban communities, not necessarily even metropolitan communities, sometimes those are people of influence in those communities. And what better word for them to go out and market your services and brand because you're providing more to them than just banking services.
That's a great point, because if you can tap into the center of influence, that most trusted marketing channel, you really are opening up whole new avenues of growth, of empowerment, and at that point, the entire community will continue to rise together. Casey, thank you very much. Really appreciate these great perspectives, and both on what some of the biggest challenges that you're hearing about and some of the opportunities that you're seeing available for credit unions and community financial brands for that matter, to continue to capture, to continue to optimize for growth around through collaboration with small to mid-sized businesses. I want to stay on this topic here a bit further to explore some of the opportunities that are available for credit unions and community financial brands to capture, to create, when it comes to optimizing for growth, by welcoming Renee Newman, who's been studying the ecosystem of small to mid-sized businesses within a community market. As you study the ecosystem between credit unions, community financial brands, small business, what are the top trends that we really need to be thinking about? What are the top trends that we need to be aware of?
I would say there are several, so I'm going to give you my top. Number one, we have to understand our consumer. Who are our small businesses already in existence? We have to understand what their needs are, what our gaps are, and what's most important to those small businesses. We also have to seek ways that we can add value to the relationship. And we need to train our employees better. And what I mean by that is what we've seen, over this past year with the pandemic, consumer and small business behaviors have changed. So they're not going into the branches as frequently. So we really need to have subject matter experts in our small business bankers to really work with those business owners to help them, again, adding that value. And really be what I'm referencing is that first call resolution. So it's going to require different training for our teams. Let's
roll this back and hit on a couple of different points here. First and foremost, you talked about really getting to know and understand these small business owners. From your perspective, what's the best way that a credit union or a community financial brand can do just that?
First party data. We have a lot of information, and I think it's been really difficult for financial brands to leverage their data appropriately. So seek understanding of that existing book. What products, services, and solutions are they using? Where are they using third-party providers? What do you do really, really well as a financial brand? And where are their gaps? How do you leverage your technology? When do you partner appropriately? So those are all ways that I would really dive into that small business sector to really first understand and then what is possible, figuring out what you could do to make a difference.
Another point that you just touched on previously was around training. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the workforce and really workforce transformation. What are the opportunities that we should be aware of when it comes to attracting, recruiting, training, retaining talent? And how might that be different going forward in the future than it was historically in the past?
Well, we have the threat of the Great Resignation. And so I think that for me, it's aligning with purpose. So what is that employee seeking? What do they want to accomplish? What is meaningful for them? I think, again, we have to meet each employee as a human first and understand what motivates, challenges, and inspires them. And then we have to be really clear, and we have to hold people accountable, and we have to train. I think we, at least in my experience, training is one of those expenses that is easy to cut. And especially, I think, even going through the pandemic, when we needed to allocate resources, then we don't need to train right now. And I think we need to double down. And I actually think we really need to focus in on that. Our employees need to understand our products, services, and solutions. They need to be fluent in them. and they need to be able to facilitate that small business owner through that relationship.
I want to look internally and stay on the employee for just a bit, because change can be hard, it can be scary, it can be painful, it can be overwhelming. We've all experienced a lot of change recently through the COVID experience. How might credit union and community financial brand leaders help to calm the minds, to calm the nerves of their internal teams? You mentioned purpose, but what about mindset? What role does mindset play in all of this as well?
I think it's significant. And you and I have had this conversation before. Growth mindset is critical. I think one opportunity for a financial brand is to stop thinking like a traditional financial services company and start looking at it from the customer's perspective. What is that small business needing? What are they wanting? How can we help them? Not, these are the products and services we have, and this is, choose one type of scenario.
You talk about looking at this from a different lens, a different angle. You mentioned purpose before. How might purpose be a North Star to chart a completely new direction forward into the future? Maybe even it's a future world rooted in niche, and what might be some of those opportunities around purpose and how purpose can align back to certain niche markets?
Well, I think the financial services industry is an amazing profession. Here we are able to meet with people on a daily basis and help them achieve their dreams and their goals. We're also there for them in some of the lowest points. And so for me, that is purpose, that is passion. And how do we ignite that in our employees? We need to be aligned culturally. We need to make the right hires. We need to ensure that we're consistently holding our teams accountable around culture. And that's, again, going back to what is your purpose? What is your passion? And how can you make a difference?
We know the past few years have been tough. The last 18 months have been really tough when it comes to, running a small to medium-sized business. What are some very practical action steps that a credit union or community financial brand could take to give a small business some help, to give a small business some hope? And oftentimes hope has to come before help. Well, what would be something that you could recommend?
Banking 101. Have a conversation with your customer. Get to know them. How do they make money? Where are their biggest hurdles? Again, going back to how do you add value to that relationship? They are not a banker. Your ambassadors, your bankers represent your brand, and they can be the trusted advisor. And so really positioning your employees, your brand as that trusted advisor.
So even in a digital world, it's the human connection that can be a way to build relationships. What might be opportunities to build that human connection, digitally speaking?
Well, let's talk about the importance of a brand. So we as a company may own our brand, but the perception of the brand isn't ours. It's in the member, it's in the consumer, it's in the perspective. So again, I think we have to look at it. What is that member seeking? What is that customer seeking? And meet them in their space. So that's, I think, an important shift that we have to make as financial institutions, to then be able to acknowledge their need, serve them in the meaningful way that that small business wants to be served. And this is where I think that when you're looking at credit unions or community banks, what's your niche? What area, what segment do you do really, really well? How can you make it better? Operate in your strengths. Come at it from a different direction. And I think, oftentimes we can think of all the list of things that we need to get done. But I think focusing on your strengths, what do you do really, really well? What small tweaks or changes can you make that would have meaningful long-term impact to that small business owner and then to your financial institution?
Why might now, more than any time before, be the time to really look into why we as a financial brand, why we as a credit union exist, to define a purpose that goes beyond just ourselves, but a purpose that elevates others in our community?
we make a difference. We're part of this ecosystem. So if we are helping a small business, that small business is employing people potentially. That small business has vendors. That small business is making a contribution to its community. And so it's this wonderful circle of life. And if you have healthy organizations and healthy small businesses, that helps a community succeed. And I think as a credit union or a financial institution, that financial literacy, helping people understand the why, leads to self-sufficiency, which then I think helps that total circle. So I'm all about, it's our mission to give back. It's our mission to help small businesses and individuals understand their opportunities, help them achieve their goals, and be there for them when they're struggling. And I think that is what makes a healthy community.
Purpose. Great thinking, Renee, around purpose, because purpose can indeed be a unifying force for good. Purpose can be a powerful perspective that leads to collaboration. As it is through purpose, we put people at the center of our thinking, we put people at the center of our doing. It is through purpose that we can put the transformation of people even over the commoditized transaction of dollars and cents. And it is the transformation of people that I know credit unions have been passionately focused on, which is why I'd like to welcome now Gene Pelham, who is the CEO of Rogue Credit Union and can provide some real practical perspective, real world knowledge to build on the thinking of Jeffrey, to build on the thinking of Casey, and to build on the thinking of Renee. Like Jeffrey before, I want to walk down memory lane.
Sure.
What have been some of the big lessons that you have learned over the past years of your experience here working in credit union world?
Well, one of the things I learned a long time ago is it's more than just a checking account or a savings account or a loan. It's really about being part of something bigger. And we've found that if we can help members see how they're part of something bigger, we can help our staff members understand how being part of something bigger is good for them and good for our members, then really powerful things happen.
Taking that even further, what about the small to mid-sized business market, which is an area that I know that you've been focused on? What have been some of the big lessons that you've learned along the way there as well?
Yeah, with the small business market, one of the things that really needs to happen is they need to know that there's somebody in their corner. They're busy, they don't have time. Just try to get a hold of a contractor right now and get them to paint a house for you or something like that. They're busy. They need us to be there for them when they want us to be there, and they need to know we're in their corner. And so I think that's one of the important things, but having the tools and the resources that when they're done with their day at 7 o'clock, they can check and see what cleared their account that day.
That's important because that gives peace of mind, that helps to build their confidence as they look towards the future, as they look to optimize their business for growth. Speaking about optimizing for growth, and in your unique situation, what have you done, what are you doing now as you look ahead towards the future to ensure that you just don't get stuck, you continue to help others and empower the small to mid-sized businesses in the communities that you're serving?
Growth for me has always been the result, not the objective. We've really focused on what's our intent, how much are we going to invest, what will that return, and then what is the impact. If we do those things, those three things really well, intent, investment, and impact, growth comes. And we've been able to prove that over time, where when we invest in people, whether it's a small business, whether it's a consumer, and we take care of them and do what's best for them, growth just happens.
I like that. Growth as a result, not an objective. Sometimes when thinking about growth in the future, it's easy to think we don't have the capability, we don't have the capacity. And now we have a world, what I call full of who's, so we don't have to worry about how are we going to do that. We can just, who do I need to align myself with? Who do I need to partner with? How has partnerships played a role as just part of your growth at Rogue?
Well, and you said it, capability and so on. We believe it's connection. Is you build those partnerships, whether it's a young aspiring business person or it's somebody that came up through our children's program and now that is back in the valley and trying to start their own business. It really is all those different areas and community involvement in a variety of different things. We connect with influencers by being there where they need us the most, and then those influencers see us as a trusted partner.
Absolutely, and when you think about the technology too that you bring to bear in the marketplace, what have you done to ensure that you're bridging sometimes those gaps historically through partnerships that you might be having technologically speaking?
We're constantly, in fact, we just went through a major upgrade, major investment in new systems and services. And what we've learned from our members is that we just kind of need to be there whenever they need us. And we weren't there from a technology perspective. And so by investing in that, we're able to do that. We're there when they need us in person. We're there when they need us online. And then we're there when they go and take their kids to the park and watch a movie that night.
One of the things that Renee was touching on, and I'd be interested to get your perspective on this, is the role of purpose. And I think you might have touched on this a little bit about connecting with people, connecting with the community, connecting with small business. How has purpose helped to drive what you've been doing at the credit union?
It's been everything. I said intent, and really intent is driven by purpose. That purpose is really how we've done it. We've sought from the very beginning not to build a credit union based on results. We've sought to build a credit union based on impact. And so we've worked on what are we doing to create value for our members? How are we fighting when somebody brings us a new product or service to make sure that product or service creates value for the member, not just more profit for us? And the thing that we found is the more we focus on creating value for members, the more financially stable we become as an institution.
Absolutely. As you look ahead towards the future, what are you most hopeful for? What are you most excited about from your point of view?
I'm hopeful that people truly see credit unions for the capability that we have, especially from a small business perspective. We've been in the small business lending business for several years now, but it's a small part of what it can be. And we really have the opportunity to build great communities by providing great support for small business leaders as they work to build their businesses and hire more people and pay living wages. If that happens well, if we make sure that that goes forward, then who's going to benefit but the credit union, because those folks are doing business with us.
Absolutely. It is because communities united do in fact grow together. Good practical perspective, Gene, and I appreciate the stories, the knowledge, the insights that you've shared, showing what's possible to create value in the real world through collaboration, through partnership. And it is both partnerships and collaborations that there'll be a strategic competitive advantage for credit unions, for community financial brands to maximize and optimize for future growth going forward. This is why I'd like to welcome John Janclays, the Nymbus CUSO president, as we wrap up today's conversation, because John, you've learned a lot from people like Gene working with others in his position. Let's dive deeper into that to really build upon the thinking that we've learned earlier today. When you think about all the lessons that you've learned, that you've had just even from your own personal experience, what are those big lessons? What are those big insights, those big key takeaways that we need to be aware of?
Well, the team did a good job, Gene included. I'm walking away with several. I think there's two. One is that in order to do the transformation to move into small business banking, there is a stack of technology, but there's also a stack of capabilities. And those two things together is what makes the whole business plan come to life. And so that really stood out. We were able to articulate what are those capabilities that complement the technology that are actually going to make this happen. So that was a huge takeaway. The other one is the need for speed. As we talk to folks who are out there competing, for our members' business, it's like the competition is there and they're getting stronger. So we need to move now. So
when you think about competition, who should we be thinking about in that point?
Yeah, I think there's Chime is out there. That's a natural. Robinhood would be another one. But just think of any of your income statement, and think about each line item and think there's a player who's showing up. I call it like a sniper, who's taking dead aim on that piece of business and is very eloquently going after it.
You call it a sniper, I call it death by 1,000 cuts. And these are important things to be aware of. But one of the things that I'm interested in too is looking ahead towards the future with hope, with optimism. What will Nymbus continue to do to empower credit unions, to empower community financial institutions to continue to elevate small to mid-sized businesses in the communities that they're serving?
Yeah, so we're really focused on 3 areas of growth, right? We need to modernize our technology stack that we have. The second one is, new routes to new markets, new growth. Maybe think like a Chime or a Robinhood. Take some, a page out of their playbook. And the other one I think is growing, we really need to get our arms around, is embedded finance. For credit unions, this is a real shift. We know it as kind of like indirect lending. So if we can use that kind of mindset that we use to do indirect lending for auto, think about embedded finance moving somewhere else. So the point of sale is moving. So we need to move there too.
When you talk about, and you use this word mindset, this was something that Renee and I talked about a little bit earlier too. Where's the opportunity to continue to empower leaders to build this mindset?
I think just being curious and being a consumer yourself. Like, be intentional when you're going out, like if you're at Starbucks, or you're at the checkout line, like pay attention to what's going on, what actually works. There's subtle shifts that are happening that are brilliant, actually.
Yes, and being aware, being a consumer, being curious. I always say it's have the mind of a kindergartner.
Yeah.
Like always be wondering how things work. And when we think about how things work, next steps. What are the next steps? Let's get real practical here at the end, that a credit union can take to continue to move forward into the future, to optimize for growth with confidence. What would those very practical next best steps be from your point of view?
Well, I like what you're saying. I mean, study the business like if it were a bug. Be a consumer, get out there and pay attention to what's going on. Be curious, And we can go to all the venues, we can read all the books, we can go to all the conferences. But that first mindset of being a customer first, make sure you slip on that vantage point on a regular basis. I don't think you can go wrong if you do that.
When you talk about keeping the customer first mindset, what might be the challenges that hold someone back from doing that? How could they get trapped in either what I call the cave of complacency, or it's some sort of a blinder that prevents them from seeing outside of their worldview?
Well, when you're a practitioner, you understand the science. And so you come at it with that scientific mind, like I understand what's happening here from a scientific standpoint or a management standpoint, rather than put on the lens of a child, put on the lens of a consumer, put on the lens of the merchant, right? About what's going on in their world. You might see things just a little bit differently.
When you're talking through that, I can't help but come back to an acronym that I frame going all in for growth. And what that is you ask good questions, get really good at asking good questions. You then listen. You just listen to what people say, and then you learn through observation. Because what people say and what people do might be a little bit different. Where might credit unions be able to go all in looking ahead towards the future, to ask, to listen, to learn?
Well, I think, think 2 by 2. Qualitative, quantitative, inside the organization and outside the organization. That's a full data set.
Yes.
Right? So go ahead and foster that and do that, right? If we only look with one eye, or if we only look at data from inside the organization, we may miss something. So that full surround sound of data, be curious about that, curate that if you don't have it, and then, different options will come up through that.
Looking ahead towards the future, what are you most hopeful for? What are you most optimistic about as you see out into the coming years?
You know what? I think if we're open and we look at the options that are on the table, both technologically, but also the capabilities that are starting to emerge, and you think very creatively, almost like putting together Legos, get excited about the ability to put these in unique and novel ways to delight your members and give you a competitive advantage. I think like never before, it's like the toolbox or the amount of stuff that we have to work with, that should be invigorating, not intimidating to me, right? So there's a lot of options on the table.
There are a lot of options on the table. How do we cut through the chaos and the noise to really separate signal from noise, to really hone in on the few things that are going to create the greatest value? Where does niche play into this?
Yeah, I think really knowing your member really well, if we're talking about a niche, maybe a doctor, maybe a contractor, when we start to look at things through their eyes, saying, oh, that starts to narrow the field about what's important. And I think that's exactly right.
Empathy. You're really touching on this idea of empathy in my mind. I think empathy is going to be a key competitive strategic advantage going forward into the future. Empathy is like a muscle. It can be strengthened, it can be trained. What are your ideas and how could that happen for a credit union, for a community financial brand to strengthen their empathy muscle in a digital world?
Yeah, I think go get the data. And as we've talked about here, both sides of it, go talk to people and then go experience what they're doing. Be really curious about that. We've got to get out of our offices. We've got to get on the street. We've got to get in the teller line. We've got to be on the phone. We've got to be on the mobile app and really start thinking about it from that perspective. Is that working? And then understand too that we have biases that we bring to that process, and maybe get another opinion and then another opinion about it. There's a little bit of patience there. There's a little bit of slowing down first to kind of really dial it in, to get that niche and really understand that. And then after that, that's the time for speed, right?
Yes. So get real clear about who the ideal market is, what their questions are, what their concerns are, and then double down to continue forward.
I like that. Double down.
Double
What
down.
you know. Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate the knowledge, the thinking, the insights that you've shared. Thank you as well to Jeffrey. Thank you to Casey, to Renee, to Jean for sharing your knowledge also. Most importantly, thank you for tuning in and joining all of us over the past 3 episodes to listen and learn together to create an even bigger, better, and brighter future for the small to mid-sized businesses in the communities that we serve. Because new starts now.